Services. We're the Center for Career and Professional Development team. I work within that group and industry and campus connections. So I'm the assistant director. Our director is in the back here, Christy Antonio. She is, and I and another partner we have, Edson, we take care of industry and campus connections. So our job is to mainly connect students to the employers and employers to students, and we just kind of facilitate that in different venues. We do this career conversations is one way, career fairs is another, and we have other events throughout the semester to connect the two to try to make it a little bit easier for employers to find the students and for students to find the employers that they're looking for. So as we were just chatting up here a minute ago, we were talking about the career fair, for example. We have an engineering career fair coming up. And in the past, we just opened it up to engineering, and it seems to be mostly civil engineers. So we had to regroup and try to figure out, strategize a little bit and how we could better manage that. So one thing we did was to limit the amount of seats that civil engineering had and environmental, electrical. So we have that, and we're honing that a little bit this semester, experimenting with it. We'll see how that goes, and then we hope to have an even better product in the fall, so we can have very fruitful conversations and a very intentional recruiting taking place on campus. So that's kind of what we've been up to the past few months. Sorry, it's a little warm in here. The AC is out in the building. In this particular side of the building, and that just happened yesterday, so we apologize for the heat there.
Good time.
Yeah, it gets a little hot in work, and you take it out.
I know.
I didn't wear a jacket intentionally because it was gonna be. But so that's kind of the logistical background of what's behind these type of talks. Last semester, we experimented with it for the first time. We had employers come in and talk about in hiring managers, what do they like to see on resumes? What do they like to see in employees? What type of traits are they looking for different positions that they're hiring for? And then the students get an opportunity to ask questions online and in person. Some of the sessions were not as well attended as others. Others, we had full classroom and we have people waiting outside. So it's just kind of hit or miss. And this is the first one we do this semester. We hope to keep progressing, and we have it live for streaming live right now. And we're going to record this and put it on our YouTube channel. So for our students to view if they didn't have the opportunity to make it during this time. So that's our audience in a nutshell. So to begin, we're just going to ask each panelist here to introduce themselves, and they're going to ask that they can tell us what company they're with. It's right here. What their title is, how long they've been with the company, and how long they've been at the organization, and then we'll just go from there. Ladies first, we'll start.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Kaylee Camback. I am with Tetra Tech. I've been with them for 2.5 years. I first started as an intern during my undergrad down in Fort Myers. I attended Florida Gulf Coast University. So I was an intern in the Astera office for a year. Then once I graduated, I began full-time as a project engineer. And then 6 months after that, I moved up to Tampa. So now I sit in the Tampa office as a project engineer, and I'm attending USF and getting my master's degree in environmental engineering. That's my spiel.
All right. Hard to top that. My name is Thomas DeCanny Matias. I work at Schweitzer Engineering Laboratory, specifically our engineering services division. I've been with the company about 4.5 years, a similar path to Kaylee, where I started as an intern in my undergrad and then kind of took that over into my professional career. And I'm at a project engineer 2 level with specialization in automation, protection, and design. So the problem solver is really what my title should be. But
Wonderful, wonderful. Since we have time, and this is kind of an informal chat for us, why don't you guys introduce yourselves, what program you're in, what year you're in?
Pursuing my master's in electrical engineering. It's been a year. I'm graduating this semester. So I'm interested in pursuing a career in electrical design. So yeah, I'm here at one of the very good companies which are into electrical design. So yeah, here to work inside and out of the company.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yourself?
Maybe. Currently seeking for a full-time opportunity.
Excellent. You just have you briefly introduce yourself, what program you're in and what year you're.
Right. My name is Kwabna. I'm a first year environmental engineering master student.
Okay, wonderful.
Hello, my name is Uzoma. I'm a first year environmental engineering master student.
Excellent.
That's very an even split between electrical and environmental.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. So we have, we got you covered. So we have enough information. So now we'll just ask each of those panelists to give us like an overview of their organization and what they do, what type of positions you're recruiting for actively, and then internships, full-time, part-time, that sort of thing.
Okay, so like I said, I'm with Tetra Tech. We are a very large company. We have over 28,000 employees, and we have 52 operating units. I got those mixed. So kind of the way that Tetra Tech works is each operating unit kind of works as its own company per se. So we do a lot of different things. My unit individually is infrastructure. So I focus on water infrastructure, stormwater, wastewater, drinking water. But we have a lot of different operating units that do a lot of different things that I am still learning about to this day. So we have lots of opportunities. We have offices all around the globe. So wherever you're interested in working, I'm sure we can find an opportunity for you. I sit in the Tampa office. It's a growing office. We're actually physically expanding the office right now. We're like knocking down walls and stuff. So that's exciting. Definitely have some opportunities there. In Florida specifically, we have offices in Tampa, like I said, Miami, Estero, Jacksonville, and Orlando. And then, yeah, we have many different offices. So.
Great, cool. I work at Spicer Engineering Laboratories. We're a big, small company, not 28,000. We're about 5,000 to 6,000 folks, but we are still global. Like I said earlier, I was in the engineering services division, so we split ourselves up into like our research and development, engineering services, and our customer service division. We're known worldwide for our customer service. We actually sell the relays that kind of protect the power grid. So there's these boxes on the utility poles that you see when you're driving down the roads, and that's what we make. We make it all here in the USA, which is really cool, and I'm really proud of that for our company. But with that said, you know, we have a lot of positions open, both in like protection engineering design, so designing how those relays go into the grid, designing the automation scheme for that, of how, like, if something trips, what needs to close to fill back in, to restore power. You know, we also have, you know, design positions open in engineering services, for application engineers. If you really love just teaching, our CEO likes to say teaching is selling. So if you like teaching people about, you know, electric power, you can find a career in that too. Yeah, so that's a little bit about us.
What type of internship opportunities do your company offer and which areas?
Yeah, so ours is, you know, we offer a lot of like project engineer roles and application engineer roles, so very engineering focused. And you know what that means is, for us, you know, we might be working on a design for a specific customer, because like Tetra Tech, we're a consultant. A customer comes to us and says, hey, we don't have the manpower to design a new substation and put the relays in for it. Can you help us out? And so we'll have a project engineer actually work on that substation in their internship. So we're very hands-on with the internships. We actually have an intern now, Sahila, who's with us, and she's working on a generator upgrade. And it's kind of crazy that, you know, we give people the power to be like, yeah, you're running this project, you know, you're putting this in service, obviously with help, don't worry, but
In the keys yet.
yeah, exactly, yeah, still in the passenger seat, so.
How about in your company?
We have internships for a variety of different roles. My internship specifically was more of a project engineer type. Similarly, so I kind of worked with all the project managers in the office and kind of just learned from them, got involved in their projects, did various tasks and helped them. And then kind of, I'm now moving up into project engineer and then eventually a project manager. But I mean, we have internships for, I mean, even if we don't have an internship specifically, I'm sure we could make an internship out of something. That kind of happened with me, like we weren't, my office wasn't looking for an intern due to COVID, and then I kind of just reached out and they're like, oh, well, maybe we could make that work. And so then that just worked. But I know we do have a very active Handshake account. So if you guys ever want to go on Handshake, we have hundreds of job postings on Handshake as well as LinkedIn. So feel free to look and just kind of see whatever job openings we have, internships available. And you can always reach out to me. I'll give you my business card after, and then I can kind of see more of what you're involved with and then hook you up with the right person.
So before I joined the industry and campus connections team, I was a career coach. So I met with students on a regular basis, on a daily basis, actually. And sometimes we had to take a step back to take a step forward. So we would have students come in and they would tell us that, well, I started in this, but this is not really the path that I want to take. So I think I want to change my major. I'm considering changing my major. So then we would take a look at that and we would do a series of discussions and testing and that sort of thing to figure out what their path was. So I say that to say that sometimes where we land is not where we started. You know, we take different career paths. So could you talk about your career path? What school did you attend? What was your major? Did you change majors at any point? And what was the path like to get here?
Okay, so yeah, I had like a, I guess you could call it like less than a quarter life crisis, I feel like. Because my whole life I wanted to be a marine biologist. I wanted to swim with turtles and the dolphins and, you know, be out on the beach all day. So I attended, and I'm also from Missouri, so that was like, what are you doing? There's beaches in Missouri anywhere remotely close. So yeah, my counselors in high school were like, well, you know, I don't know if that's really realistic, but anyways, I attended Florida Gulf Coast University, which is in Fort Myers, and I was going as marine science. And then my sophomore year, my freshman year, I did some volunteer experience, and then my sophomore year, I kind of was like, I don't think this is for me, but I don't know what else I want to do. So I'm kind of like stuck, and I'm a very like planned person. So I mean, my whole life I was projected to do that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what else I'm like interested in. I don't know what else I want to do. So I spoke with my professors, and I was like, look, I mean, I like marine science, I like math, I like science, but this just isn't the right fit for me. And then I spoke with my advisors, and then they kind of were talking to me about different math and science oriented majors. And then obviously I spoke with my family and peers. And then I got in touch with the engineering advisors, and I was like, oh, there's no way I could do engineering. Like that just doesn't really, I didn't really understand what engineering was. Like, I don't know, in high school, environmental engineering was not ever discussed, just like wasn't a thing. So I was like, I don't really know like what that is. But it kind of took a leap of faith and started going into that program. And then I got hooked up with one of my professors, and he got me involved in his research. And I really, really enjoyed it. I was working on the WEF Nexus, which is water, energy, and food. And I really enjoyed working with that and kind of learning about the systems, and then kind of just progressed. I had a little bit of a difficult time because of COVID, so all my classes got pushed online. I'm like, what am I supposed to do now? Like, and then I literally just started cold calling companies. Like I called probably 20 different engineering firms that I had any remote interest in. And most of them said no because of COVID. They're like, we don't have any interns right now. Like, we'll reach out to you when we kind of go back into the office. And then luckily, I reached out to someone on LinkedIn. I saw he had attended Florida Gulf Coast University and he worked at Tetra Tech. So I reached out to him. And then a couple weeks later, he was like, oh my gosh, I never checked LinkedIn, but yes, come in, like I'll get you set up with someone and we'll interview you. And then I kind of just flowed from there, and I got an internship, and then luckily, I've loved the company ever since. They've been fantastic. I've learned so much. And yeah, then I was able to relocate to Tampa and here I am.
As a career coach or former career coach, I just shed a tear. It's just everything that we advise our students to do is
Yeah.
exactly what you did. And that is to talk to your professors and do some research. LinkedIn is invaluable. And that's where a lot of networking takes place, not necessarily job search per se, but networking. And from there, over 80% of the people that get jobs get them through networking. So it's a great place to have a strong presence at and to be active in. So you did everything exactly by the book, I would say, in researching all different routes. Anybody here have a similar experience? Where maybe you didn't, you're on a path that maybe you didn't begin on? Yeah,
Yeah, I graduated with a petroleum engineering degree from Penn State in 2019. And oil prices were not so good, and I wanted to enter the upstream field, becoming a drilling engineer. And that was not gonna happen simply because I also wasn't a citizen, so I would reach out to people on LinkedIn, probably, she said 20. I probably reached out to 200 people. And one person finally said, hey, you can come and work as a geologist, like $12 an hour, get your foot in the door. And I was off to West Texas, living in a shack, and did that and talked with one of my other buddies who was in Pittsburgh and doing something completely different from petroleum engineering. Did that for 3 years, and then now I'm here doing a PhD. But yeah, I could definitely sympathize with that.
so what's your major now and what year are you in here?
I'm a PhD second year doing environmental engineering.
Okay,
It's
excellent.
actually my classmate.
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. Okay, great. Yeah, so how about you? What year are you in and what which program? Yeah,
Civil.
okay, yeah, chemical engineering. So what made you want to transition?
In like a lot of hazardous stuff.
Wisconsin.
I wanted to find out, I wanted to find my well-being and doing what I enjoy, and I find that.
Excellent. So how about your story?
So it's funny because like in our industry, no one ever, whenever you ask anybody, oh, like brought you to SEO, no one's like, I woke up as like, when I was 13 years old and said, I want to be a relay engineer. You've never heard that in the industry at all. So, me personally, I was actually just kind of perusing through internships and such during my undergrad years. And I found SEL as an opportunity. I attended actually the competitors panel, kind of like what this was. So the competitor banquet was actually in like Largo, Florida. So they came, did like a presentation. And so I went to SEL and I was like, I kind of know what I'm talking about. And they were like, no, you don't. But they decided to take me on. And I've been with the company ever since, jumped in a couple roles, started in design, went to protection, went to automation, kind of do a little bit of project management now. So it's just kind of whatever, I find goes my way. A lot of my coworkers too, like one of them started in criminology and is now,
That's a big difference.
yes, yeah, now he was my boss. So it's like a little bit of a switch there. One of my other coworkers, he just liked wiring car radios. Used to do that for, I think Radio Shack was the company's name. That's a company, right? Radio
Yeah,
Shack
it used to be.
used to be, yeah. And he just like, working with his hands and working on electronics, and that brought him into kind of relay engineering. And so there's definitely a lot of paths pretty much for anybody to get into our type of career. So even if it wasn't exactly, a straight line for me, and for other folks, it was a kind of 90-degree and then another 90 and since like that. I'm happy where it ended up being. So
And also a USF alum.
yes, go Bulls.
There you
So
go.
actually, our office is full of like 6 or 7 different USF alums, and yeah,
Wonderful.
not a single one was like, I want to work at SEO. They were all different paths, but we all came here. So
So as we can see, we've heard from panelists on the back there, not all, the path that you're on doesn't necessarily have to be the path that you stay on. Hopefully you found your way and you're doing okay where you're at. But it's okay to change your mind and to, or even just take a step back and just relook at things, even if you stay on that path. And just giving yourself permission to do that is sometimes really important. And if you ever needed to hear it, I think you heard it today. So, right now we'll open it up for questions. Any questions that you have? You have them available here? You have any questions for them regarding anything?
I have a question I'll get started. If you could go back to your college selves, what's one piece of advice that you would give to yourself?
Okay, going back to what you said, it's okay to change what you want to do. That was like such a big thing. I had such a hard pill to swallow. I was like, I can't change. Like, I wanted to do this my whole life and I did it and I've never been happier. And I'm sure a lot, like every engineer is like a perfectionist, very hard on themselves because they like perfect numbers. At least that's how I am. But don't beat yourself up. I was so hard on myself in college, and I feel like I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I would have made it through. And I was so hard on myself to get an A in every single class, which you definitely should get A's. But don't stress yourself out so bad. You know, enjoy life, focus on your relationships. Yeah, that's cheesy, but it's true. It's important. The work will always be there.
Yes, yeah, the work will always be there. Yep, that's why we have a lot of internship positions. It's just the work will always be there. Yeah, I'd probably say something similar. I think looking back at it, the one thing I'd say is like it's okay to go for any fish, big or small. We always have the guy from Raytheon come in and talk about, oh, this is a big company, and you're like, I want to work at Raytheon. And you're like, oh, but there's so many like different opportunities out there. It's whether it's something small. With something small, kind of like where I was at with SEL, we've grown a lot bigger now, but when we first started, it was a lot smaller. And that gives you the opportunity to create something of how you want to create it. You get to lead people the way you want to lead. You get to do a bunch of different cool projects. And it's not like you're kind of pigeonholed into a small, oh, I'm working on just like RF engineering at Raytheon. But if you want to grab those big fish and you want to say, hey, I want to work at Boeing and I want to work on engines like that, that's okay too. I have plenty of friends who, get friends who work at SpaceX, friends who work at Boeing, friends who work at, what's the other contractor that's nearby? It doesn't matter if it's a big company or a small company, just figure out what you like doing. And if you find that the work you do at that company helps like complement that, then that's a match for you. It might not be, you wake up one day and you're like, I've always wanted to work for XYZ company. You really should just wake up one day and be like, I enjoy working for, these people because it's what I want to do. And at the end of it, at the day, it's something I enjoy and kind of get, reward out of. So.
Great. So our PhD students are back. What kind of questions do you bring for them?
No pressure.
They're all environmental, so I got it easy over here. Okay. So.
What would you say you learned in college that you brought to?
No equations.
More question there.
For me, it was more like the larger picture, like the larger lessons that you learned through all of your engineering courses. Like I feel like when I was in school, prior to my internship, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna remember like all these a million equations? Like it's not so much about memorizing, it's more just the process of you're dealt a problem and you have to solve the problem. And what tools are you going to use to solve the problem? Then once I got into my internship, I was able to kind of see that like, oh, I know what flow is and I know what pipes are, and like it's just kind of solving. No problem is going to be the exact same. So like what I had a hard time with in school, you learn, okay, here's step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll go do this exact same problem with steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like every single project I have ever worked on has never been the same. So that was like something that I really learned getting into the workforce from college.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's we're in the business of problem solving a lot of the time. So it never is step 1, 2, 3. But you're given the book, you're given the equations, you're given all the different pieces. So like, how do you put them together? And I remember one of my electric machines or something, one of those classes. The professor kind of twisted the problem a little bit, and it wasn't exactly how it was in the book. And so you kind of learn like, okay, like because this is different, I'm going to use this equation differently and apply this and do that. And like that sort of thinking of being like, okay, I can go back to the fundamentals. I can go back to things and just use it to problem solve. That's super important. Because yeah, that's what they'll ask you to do. They'll say, here's a problem, can you solve it for us? And then can you do it under time and under budget? And those two, don't worry about those two, as long as you solve the problems. Yeah, exactly.
So, what I would say is companies more and more are looking for, yes, if you need a specific degree or technical skills, obviously they'll look for that, but more so companies are starting to look at skill-based hiring. So what do you bring to the table that more of that emotional intelligence versus maybe some of the classes that you've taken, they want to make sure that you're in the right culture fit. So things like communication, problem solving, those traits that are a little bit more inherent to you, that make you successful in school and in jobs. Companies are starting to look at that more and more. So keep that in mind as well. Don't downplay those parts of yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we mentioned earlier, nobody comes thinking, they're not born and thinking, I want to be a relay engineer. So what we do is we look at a resume, and the first thing I go to is your projects and your group projects. And I say, okay, what did you guys solve? Did you solve it together? And then I can start asking you questions. Oh, like, did you do all the work, or did you do it as a group? Oh, we did it as a group. Okay, that tells me that you have great communication skills, that you can kind of work with people that way. If they're unique projects, that's even greater because, when we talk about problem solving, a project is just your professor saying, pick some random problem and solve it. And so, we get to kind of ask about that and say, all right, how did you go about solving this? Did you reach out to your professor when you hit a wall? Did you go on Stack Overflow? Did you, what did you do to kind of get past that barricade and get past that barrier to solve this? So I like looking at projects a lot. So I think that's something that you definitely shouldn't take for granted. Is because exactly, what she said is they show a lot of those skills.
That's a great tip. And as career coaches, when we're talking about putting the resume together, you customize, we tell our students to customize your resume for that position that you're applying to. So a generic resume, and you just send it out to 200 people, that usually doesn't work well. So you have to customize the resume for that position. Got a lot of tools out there that can help you with that. And so with that said, putting your projects on, one, you could illustrate how you work as a team, and another one, how if you worked on something by yourself, and put both of those on there for when a recruiter comes across your resume, they understand that you can handle both sides of that.
I was just gonna touch on what Christy said. It is very important how you kind of like fit into the culture of the workplace. It's something it is not talked about, in my opinion. But it goes for both sides. Like, if you are working somewhere where you do not feel like you fit in, or you can communicate openly with your coworkers, like, you are not going to feel like you fit in at work, and you're not going to feel like you can succeed, and vice versa. Like, if your coworkers feel like they can't really educate you or train you, then it's kind of like a burned bridge. But that's why it's so important to get the internships, work at, like, experience different work cultures, and then in the interviews, like, be your true self, because it's pretty easy to pick up if you can click with someone. And of course, they're gonna look at your resume and your accolades and look at all of that, say, yes, you're the good candidate. But would you fit in the workplace, in our office? That's also something else that's talked about. But it's good for both sides. Like, don't take it personal if you don't feel like you fit in. Like, it's probably a good thing for yourself as well.
We're hiring for a career coach.
Yeah, we can tell, and you can tell when you don't fit in. So that's a great point. You guys, we had a question on the back.
So how do you make sure that you're still learning on the job and, you know, you're progressing yourself as somebody that calls themselves an engineer, obviously, getting your MPMP is an important process in becoming an engineer, but in my experience, I worked for a consulting firm for years, and at some point it would just become a project that just the numbers are a little bit different, or the pipe looks a little bit different, or, you know, this looks a little bit longer or shorter. At that point, I feel myself like stagnating in the company, it's a consulting company, I could go with your utilization and all that.
So he knows it, he gets it.
So how do you make sure that you're still progressing and keeping things interesting, at the same time doing good work?
I would say just be open with your boss or your colleagues. Like if I would look at what your colleagues are working on and say, hey, that seems like a really interesting project. Like I would like to be involved with that project. Most of the time they'll be like, oh yeah, we need help with this. Like you kind of have to navigate your own path per se. So like personally, I want to get into like, I mean, yes, the next step is project management. And then I want to get into kind of like upper management. So like I've been attending conferences and like doing things on my own time to kind of fit that way. So it's kind of like you just have to talk to your boss and be open and say, look, this is what I want to do in my career. Can you help me get there? Like, how can I get to this point in my career? Because it's very easy to get pigeonholed. You know, if you're just kind of not really saying anything and doing the same thing and you're doing a good job at it, you're like, oh, well, if they're not really saying anything, like this must be what they want to do. So it's kind of just being open about it.
Yeah, a good
That's
boss
what
will
I would
ask you, but there's not a lot of good bosses in the world. So, yeah, exactly right. You gotta talk about it. And if your boss says, listen, all we have is this work and this is what we're doing, it's bread and butter, then that's kind of like what I was saying earlier. One thing I wish I would know if I started over in college is like, if I get to that point, I'll say, you know what, okay, I'm gonna try a different company. I'm gonna try something else. Because some people are comfortable with doing the same thing day in and day out. In a company, you know, like they like those folks for that certain type of work. We actually it's a very timely discussion because we had a leadership discussion about this at our company of like, how do we keep people engaged when they're doing repetitive work? And, you know, the sad truth is we do have repetitive work every now and then. And so if it's really affecting you that much, and you've talked to your boss about expanding to new projects or maybe trying a rotation type of work or something like that, but it's still not working out, then you might just have to sever ties, you know, so that way for yourself, you feel like you're actually progressing and learning some new things. So,
This might seem like a silly analogy, but I can't even believe I'm saying this.
Just say it.
I recently have been comparing a lot of things to like my personal relationships with friends, with family. Like if you want to see something going somewhere, like you have to be the one to step up, talk about it. Sometimes it's an uncomfortable conversation, but you kind of have to be the one to say, hey, look, this isn't really working. Like, we got to talk about this. We have to make this work. Otherwise, this is not going to work, basically. And like keeping things interesting, it's like, oh, let's, you know, go see this concert or let's go do this. It's like you kind of have to reach out and work on different projects or attend different events. Like, I have found a lot of joy in doing things like this, like being on panels or attending conferences, just doing other things other than the normal workday life. Like Thursday, there's a FUIA luncheon if you're going. I like doing stuff like
Yeah,
that
Columbia.
when you're
Yes.
going,
at the Columbia. But
shoot.
in the engineering field, I don't know about yours, but I can speak on behalf of like the water industry. There's a lot of events and it just keeps things like light because yes, work is exhausting every single day, like 40 hours a week, it does get exhausting. So it's just kind of like being involved and I'm on different committees. I mean, that's my own volunteer time, but that's what I enjoy and that's what keeps it interesting.
Yeah, and you know, if you have that discussion, that also in tells you whether or not your employer likes you, right? Because if they say, oh, no, we want to keep you, we'll find something for you. And that's nice. It's nice to feel that. If they say, whatever, then that's probably a place you don't want to work for anyways. So,
Yeah.
so it's kind of great if you do reach out and start those discussions. So.
So how about our master's students over here on this side of the room? You guys have any questions for the panelists? You got them
Right,
here?
right. So
Yeah.
my undergrad was in chemical engineering, but I'm transitioning more. I have transitioned into environmental, mental. I didn't need, this was, okay, I didn't need like specific like engineering applications that you feel will be relevant. I mean, for me.
Engineering
Like
applications
software.
for.
Yeah.
For chemical?
No, for environmental.
Oh,
Since I don't have that background, I didn't need like applications or software special thing.
Like some skills that would be good to know for the field.
it's like such a wide variety. I mean, it kind of depends on what field you want to get into. Like, there's so many different softwares. I know you could learn CAD. Like, I personally don't use CAD, but that is a big thing that companies like to see, or GIS. If you like to do more of the software, I personally don't, but there's a ton of software out there. Like, I just downloaded a software called Rosa and Wave for water quality, like looking at membranes of water treatment plants. I mean, there's like a million softwares out there, but I guess the most broad base would be CAD and GIS.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, I think the underlying thing of what Kaylee's saying is like she doesn't use programs every day. What she's probably doing is like juggling tasks between project managers and engineers and, you know, making calls and conversations and things like that. And that's an important part of the job too. You know, there are folks who we can put in a corner and give them some GIS software, CAD software and say, pump out these drawings for me. But it is good to have like the mix of being able to communicate with others, being able to understand how to break down a project into different deliverables and knowing, you know, how to get there. So I think don't get too hung up on the software. Yes, it's important to have on the resume because it's one less thing we have to train you on. But then, you know, like once you're done doing the drawings, you gotta call someone up for a review. If you can't pick up a phone, like that's very bad. You know, we want to make sure people have those additional skills as well that kind of complete the full job.
A question. You kept saying about additional skills. Are there any like soft skills that you see people with a lot of experience and like a really good resume just fail at and don't get the job?
Yes, yeah, there are common times when you look at a resume, everything looks good. You know, you bring them in for the interview and like, you know, like, oh, tell me about this project where you built an app, and it's like brick wall. And, you know,
Communication speed. But you have to be able to, you know, sell yourself in a way and communicate with others, and it's like, that's why we did all those group projects. you know,
that's right, yes.
Which I hated.
I'm gonna get to
But-
it in a sec here.
That's very important, as communicating yourself and with each other to solve problems.
Yeah, I once had a student come in and they had a fantastic resume and I looked at it and it read well. And but when started speaking with the student, they did not communicate very well. So, you know, ChatGPT, they think that we don't know what that is. Oh, you know about ChatGPT? So of course, it's used as a tool. You use a writing center as a tool, you use Grammarly as a tool, ChatGPT, Google, whatever your resources are, your friends. That's okay, as long as it doesn't, you don't just use that and just put it in the prompts and just let it roll. So you have to be smart about that too. So communication, to both your point, is crucial for getting through that interview process. So when you come in, be ready to speak about what you have on your resume. And do you two have any questions for the panelists? Yeah.
So the technology is increasing daily. So how do you guys stay updated on your like emerged skills and technologies within your field? Like daily.
So I know at Tetra Tech, we have a lot of initiatives. So like One Water Initiative, there's a lot of buzz around AI, like I can only speak on like the water sector because that's what I'm in, but I'm sure this spreads across a lot of companies in a similar way. But yeah, we have a lot of people that I personally don't work with AI. I would like to get more involved with that, for example. But just kind of working with that on how we can advance our water treatment systems. I mean, I would say I should probably be doing that on my own time. We do have like they call like sessions that you can join and learn about it. But I'm answering that very
Well,
right.
the committees you're on, are they for like standardization type of like groups or something like that? Or?
Yeah, like we have people that do that. I don't do that. So
Yeah.
if I wanted to get involved, I could.
For us, you know, IEEE is the big one, right? And so when you're in tune to that, you know, you can be on like the power committee and there's people from many different industries that kind of talk to you about, oh, here's the latest thing we're doing. And when we talk about many different industries, I'm talking about like, oh, here's someone who works at TECO, here's someone who works at Duke Energy, and they're on that committee. So, you know, as the consultants, we're like, oh, like, what are you doing at your company? You know, and you get to kind of put your ear to the ground for that and really stay tuned to, okay, this is the next technology that they're doing. Are they working with, you know, IEC 61850? Are they working to do more high density coordination? You know, you talk to the people in these committees and in these organizations and you get to hear and be like, okay, maybe I should study up on that. And then you can do, you know, what you said, look for those different panels and sessions and start learning about the different technology that these companies are applying. So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like at the conferences, it's a huge benefit to attend and you get to see the latest technology, the latest projects coming out, and then kind of see how those are progressing. And I mean, I know in the water industry, there's been a lot of hype about certain things, and then, you know, later down the line, it's like, oh, well, maybe that wasn't the greatest idea. But in terms of that, it's more just like learning what the client, from a consultant standpoint, what the clients want, how to reduce their costs and enhance their systems. So it's kind of just following where that path goes.
We got time for one more question. Anyone have one more question? Go ahead.
Yeah, this question might be very selfish.
Let's have it. We're all family here.
Bachelor's in petroleum engineering, doing the master's in environmental. So, do you think for someone with my profile that can work, like say oil and gas, or am I just limited with water related stuff? Because that's pretty much all I've been getting.
No, I mean, if you have a background in that, you can definitely, I mean, I don't wanna
I'm just
say
talking
that.
about environmental engineering.
Yeah.
Is environmental engineering like oil and gas industry, or is just predominantly water?
No, they have, I mean, environmental is air quality, water, wastewater, remediation, trees, I mean, the whole spectrum. I'm just involved with water, and I know in Tampa it's very heavily water focused. But I'm sure, I mean, I know my company specifically, we have like remediation applications, a unit for that. So you could do, if you're interested in like remediation of oil or how to enhance the environmental impacts of the oil industry. I mean, there's surely a lot of environmental aspects of the oil industry.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, an oil and gas company that's out in Texas, like they still probably have wastewater, right? They still probably have some pumps pushing something around in the plants. Maybe they have a generator on site, you know, that they use for the processes. Oh, the generator uses water and there's a way you got to treat it and work with it. There's a lot of like finite things that you might not see on first level, but you know, companies, a lot of the older folks are aging out and they're starting to realize like, oh boy, we have this like niche thing that's happening, that we need like a wastewater person on site at our oil and gas field, and we don't have anybody. And then you walk in and you say, well, actually, yeah, me. So, you know, there are different opportunities like that. The niche things is where you can thrive in a lot of those examples. But then also on the other hand, you know, credentials is just like credentials at the end of the day, you know, back to that problem solving thing. If they say, okay, this guy knows a little bit about oil and gas in that industry, but you know, for the most part, everything else on his resume looks good. You know, I don't think they're gonna be too upset that you have a master's in environmental engineering, so.
Yeah, I mean, most of my work is technically civil, but it's focused on water. But I'm like designing and managing projects. But it's all design work. So I mean, you could design an oil plant. I mean, if that sparks your interest. There's a job for everything. So I would figure out like what exactly you're interested in and then research the companies that do that. Just reach out to them.
Did that answer your question okay? Okay, perfect.
Environmental is a new concept and it's very broad. So I think you're in a good spot to be applicable to a lot of different opportunities.
All right, so, well, you said pushing older people on, you pointing towards me.
No. The camera didn't catch that, right? They didn't.
So, we're about to wrap it up now. If you could give some final thoughts, advice for the class, and then, we'll wrap it up.
On the spot.
Don't sell yourself short. Like you have worked hard, engineering is hard, and you can do anything that you figure out. But it really is like you'll get into the job and you'll just learn and you'll grow. You'll be fine. I think I actually learned this today, imposter syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think I have a little bit of imposter syndrome. But yeah, if you don't know what that is, research it. You might have it. But don't worry about that. It's fine.
Yeah, and I would probably wrap up saying like find the value that you have and that you bring to the table and make sure you showcase that, right? You know, everyone has their own different personalities, their own skills, their own everything. But it's on the communication side, the program side. There's always that one person who's used that one random program that nobody else has. But you know, understand that that's value. That's not just, oh, something I picked up in school. Like, no. Like you have value in a lot of the things that make up who you are. And bringing that to the table, to these companies and to where you want to work is very important and something that I think a lot more folks should focus on when they're out there searching for what they want to do.
All right, before we wrap this up, I want to thank Christine Antonio, our director, for putting this together. CJ, he's our systems administrator for putting it together, all the IT. I'm sure he can relate to a lot of this stuff, and he's in a master's program here as well. So this is all a common language for him, I'm sure. So then thank you all for attending. Don't just a reminder, we have a career fair February 27th. We're both working that career fair. They bring you great opportunities. Just as a side note, if you can go into Handshake and look up the career fair, we're making the employers post at least one job that they have available. So you can see from every company what they have before you go talk to them, so you can manage your time more efficiently when you're in the room. Because I know time is precious when you're in there, and it's a very limited off window. And you don't want to stand in a line and get to the front and figure out that company's not for you. So do your due diligence and check it out before in Handshake to see what kind of opportunities they have available for you. And that's good. That's about it. If you could stick around for a couple more minutes, and if you have any one-on-one questions, and then but don't keep them too long. They got to go too. And thank you for being here. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys for coming. Yeah, of course. Thank you for. Scoop.